Right now, you are seeing the universe the wrong way, and once you understand why, you'll never look at the world the same way again. Let's start at the very bottom with a single straight line, and that line is the first dimension, where anything living inside it could only ever do one thing: move forward and backward with no up, no down, no sideways, just a narrow tunnel with two directions and nothing else. Now take a second line and cross it over the first, and suddenly you have width and length together. A flat plane and a creature living here can move up, down, left, right, and anywhere in between. And here is the first strange idea. Because this entire flat world is nothing more than an infinite stack of those first lines piled perfectly on top of one another. Now add one more direction, depth, and you finally arrive at our world, the third dimension, with length, width, and depth, and just like before, our solid 3D world is nothing but an infinite stack of those flat planes layered together. So notice the pattern building here. A line is made of points, a plane is made of lines, a cube is made of planes, and you can already feel where this staircase is heading. But before we climb any higher, here comes the twist that almost nobody ever realizes. Because you live in 3 dimensions, yet you do not actually see in 3 dimensions, you see in two. Look at a perfect sphere, and on the back of your eye, it lands as nothing but a flat circle. And the only reason your brain knows it is a solid ball instead of a flat coin is the shading, the way light falls brighter on one side and darker on the other. And if you stripped that lighting away completely, a sphere and a circle would look identical to you. Your eyes only ever capture flat images, and your brain quietly guesses the depth and fills it in. So in a very real sense, a 3-dimensional being like you actually perceives the world one whole dimension flatter than it truly is. Now follow that pattern upward, because a 2-dimensional creature would see its world as flat 1-dimensional lines. And we 3-dimensional creatures see our world as flat 2-dimensional images, which means a 4-dimensional creature would see our world fully, in true and complete 3 dimensions, and that single ability would look to us exactly like a superpower. A 4-dimensional being looking down at us could see inside everything all at once: inside sealed houses, inside locked boxes, inside your own body with every organ laid open at the same time, the very same way you can glance down and instantly see every single dot scattered across a flat floor, because to it, nothing solid could ever be hidden. So what shape does a 4th dimension even have? And to find out, you simply follow the staircase again. A point stretched out becomes a line. A line pushed sideways becomes a square. A square pushed into depth becomes a cube, and a cube pushed in a brand new direction that we cannot even point to becomes a tesseract, a true 4-dimensional cube. And here is the humbling part, because no human being can ever truly picture a tesseract. Not me, not you, not the single smartest person who has ever lived, and every drawing you have ever seen of one is only its shadow. The same way a solid cube casts a flat, distorted shadow onto the ground, so we can perfectly do the math. We simply cannot ever imagine the real thing. And it does not stop at 4 either, because there is a 5th dimension, a 6th, a 100th, and mathematically the dimensions never actually run out. Now you have almost certainly heard somewhere that the 4th dimension is time, and it is one of the most repeated ideas out there. But it is far more subtle than people think, because while physics really does treat time as a 4th part of something called space-time, it is not a 4th spatial dimension like the tesseract, since space and time are simply 2 completely different kinds of things. So saying the 4th dimension is time quietly mixes up 2 separate ideas into one. But time does do something genuinely incredible that makes people link the two together, because the faster you move through space, the slower you actually move through time. And this is not a theory. It has been measured again and again. If a group of astronauts climbed into a spaceship and flew at nearly the speed of light for just a few short months and then returned home, they would land on an Earth that had quietly aged by years, meaning they would have stepped forward into the future simply by moving fast enough through space. And there is one final idea that bends the mind even further than all the rest. Because many physicists and mathematicians suspect that nothing in existence is ever perfectly straight or perfectly infinite, so take that very first line and curve it just the tiniest amount, and if you follow it far enough, it eventually closes into a complete circle, and curve a flat plane the very same way, and it slowly wraps itself into a sphere. Now do that exact same thing to our universe, and it suggests something almost impossible to swallow, that you could travel in a perfectly straight line through space for long enough and arrive right back where you started. Not because you ever turned around, but because the third dimension itself is gently curved inside the fourth. So here is where all of this finally leaves us. Because our three-dimensional world may quietly sit inside a four-dimensional one. And that four-dimensional world may sit inside a fifth, and that inside a sixth, on and forever. Layer within layer within layer without end. You are not seeing the whole picture, and the truth is you never could. And maybe that is the single most beautiful part of all of this, that a mind completely trapped inside three dimensions can still somehow reach up, with nothing in its hands but pure logic, and gently touch the edges of worlds it will never once be allowed to see.